Matthew, thanks for joining us on VIP TV. Just thinking about you before this interview, I don't think there's many people in boxing who I've ever met who loves the sport as much, because you're mad for it. Training or boxing, what do you prefer?
Well, it's a good question, that. I don't think anything quite beat being in there and doing it yourself. But I'm really enjoying the coaching. And even when I was boxing, you know, like you just touched on there, mate, I've always been a very big boxing fan, always followed boxing and always absolutely loved the sport. And I always had one eye on being involved. Even, you know, everything good comes to an end. And I knew one day when I retired, I'd still want to stay involved in the sport, and the coaching is what I really enjoy doing. So I don't think anything quite beats doing it yourself, but it doesn't fall far short. You know, I'm really enjoying. I've been coaching a few years now, and I really enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
I mean, you touched on it there where you said everything good comes to an end. It was good to you, boxing, 52 fights. When you turned pro, I don't think many people had a lot of expectation given who your brother was, and you just got on with it, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It's always been my way, really, to just get on with it. And I had very limited amateur experience, Steve. I only had 22 amateur contests. And like you say, looking back, 52 professional fights. A lot of fights, and like you've just touched on there, mate, all I seem to hear these days, and boxing is a tough sport, you know, even tougher business, as both me and you well know, Steve. But all I seem to hear these days is, you know, boxing's taken this, it's taken that, all doom and gloom, and what boxing has taken from them. And I totally get that, and I understand that, and that there is some terrible stories out there. But from my own personal point of view, boxing's only ever been good to me. You know, the only issue is now I wish I could go back and do it all over again. I think sometimes now I'm involved with the training and the managing. I think sometimes you're looking from the outside and you don't quite realise what a brutal sport it is. But saying that, you know, it takes a special kind of person to be a fighter. And knowing the dangers and knowing how tough of a sport and a business it is, would I go and do it all again? Of course I would, in a heartbeat. I wish I could go and do it all again now. So, yeah, 52 professional fights, you know, boxing's been good to me. I enjoyed every step of the way, even the defeats, you know, the rough and the smooth. It was a great journey, you know, very fortunate. I retired at the right time. I have no doubt about that, even though I was only young when I retired. You know, I'd had 52 professional fights. And so many fighters don't get out of this sport at the right time. It was definitely the right time for me to draw the curtain on my career. But when I look back, you know, of course I could have done things differently. I think, of course, things could have been different. I do have little regrets and stuff like that. But on the whole, mate, I look back on it with great, great memories. And it always brings a smile to my face. You know, I got out of the sport, still a young man, healthy. You know, I'll be the first to admit I've done well out of the sport, you know, had some big fights, earned well out of something I've always loved doing. I've always loved being involved in. So I'm a lucky man.
I mean, obviously, you know, without dwelling too much on defeats, there was some heroic night. Well, certainly I was at the Canelo fight with you for the week. That was a great week. One of the best I've had in boxing, even if the result wasn't right for anyone who was there.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I know, but you know that was an heroic. Yeah, that was an heroic performance. It was fantastic. But when you say regret, this is just, you know, so I'm on the outside looking in. You've been in the ring, so you can tell me more. Was nights like the Brook fight a regret where you just wasn't there? Was that a case of knowing that it was coming to an end after that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few regrets and hindsight's a great thing. Again, I look back and I've gathered all this knowledge and experience over the years, and I find that's what's helping me with the coaching and the managing now. You know, it's all first hand. You know, I've been in all kind of different situations in boxing over the years. When I fought Canelo Alvarez, you know, I was European champion at the time. I was undefeated. I was very highly ranked in all the governing bodies. I was in the top 10 in them all, Steve. And maybe looking back, if I'd have had a little bit more patience and you know, looked in different directions, you know, some of the world champions that was about at the time, Malignaggi, Senchenko, who fought my brother. Do I think I could have beaten them at the time in the form I was in? Yes, I do. But, you know, I've never ducked a challenge in my life, and I'll be brutally honest, Steve. You know, I wanted to fight the best people out of there for the biggest money possible. I was never afraid of anyone. I was always up for a challenge, and I wanted to fight the best people for the best money. So I took the Alvarez fight. With hindsight, was it the right thing to do for my career? Maybe not. The Kell Brook fight, probably another. You know, a lot of the fights I'm known for is in my losing efforts, really. Like say the Kell Brook fight, another one. It was just circumstances that night. You know, I had a slight problem with my nose going into the fight. I think it was damaged in my last sparring session. But it was, you know, I went into the fight. Kell Brook caught me in the first round, broke my nose. And again, in all my experiences and in all the fights I look back on, that was a fight that I do regret. You know, I was in terrible amount of pain. I broke my nose in the first round against such a good fighter. And every time I tried to initiate anything, he was catching me, and the pain was unbearable. So, you know, I lost that fight, you know, and I do look back and think, you know, if circumstances would have been kinder to me, you know, I could have given better account of myself. Do I honestly think I could have beat Kell Brook? Again, I'll be honest, no, he was a better fighter than me. I'll be the first one to admit that. But looking back on that, I wasn't able to give the best of myself. And like I say, for all my experiences in the ring, I've never been in so much pain. You know, I broke a nose in the very first round against such a quality fighter, but I still stuck it in there, mate. There's never been any quitting me. I stuck it in there till the end. But again, not a friend experience to look back on.
I know that. I saw there weren't no quitting you the second half against Canelo, but there was a lot more great nights. You touched on Senchenko there. I think was he WBA champion, just on the top of my head. He was pretty. Yeah. Saying you somebody you think you believe you could have beaten him, and he was most probably at that time comparable with guys you beat like Nuzenko, Gianluca Branco, and of course and Ben Taki maybe.
Absolutely, you know, when I had the European title, which I beat Gianluca Branco for, I'd only lost to Miguel Cotto and Arturo Gatti. My first defence was against a guy called Yuri Nizhnenko, who was a former WBA world champion. Yeah. He lost a split decision to Senchenko. When I fought Nizhnenko again, first round, broken jaw, I got up and won the fight. Do I think I could have beat Senchenko? The answer is yes. But do I look back with regret and think, oh no, I could have done this, I could have done that? No, that's life. That's life, Steve. You know, we make mistakes. Sometimes we choose one path and not the other. So I don't look back with regret. Things could have been different. Do I believe if things could have panned out well, could have been a world champion? Yes, I do. But there's been much better fighters than me that haven't gone on to win a world title. So I can't complain, Steve.
What was I mean, I'm thinking of the Taki fight now. Was that the night really you emerged from your brother's shadows? Because until then, you was always referred to as Ricky's brother by a lot of people, weren't you? It was only those of us that might have known you, you know, because you was on them bills. Oh, Ricky's brother's boxing. But that seemed to be the night you emerged.
Yeah, it did. I mean, a lot of my good nights probably come towards the back end when Ricky was retired. You know, I think things started moving for me when I moved away from the Phoenix camp. You know, Billy Graham was a great trainer, but he put a lot of his time and efforts into Ricky. One by one, the fighters were leaving, and I stuck it out there to the end, really. And I should have moved trainers sooner. I first went with Lee Beard and then Bob Shannon, who really believed in me. And again, when I moved away from there and I got more time invested in me, I was a fighter who didn't have a lot of experience, so needed coaching, needed pushing on, needed guiding. And when those two guys believed in me, started putting the time and effort into me, you know, the fruits was there to see me. My career really took off. And like you say, a lot of the big nights for me were towards the back end of my career. But I had some really good wins in my career. You know, I won the European title against Gianluca Branco. I defended it against Yuri Nizhnenko, who was a former world champion. Ben Tack, you touched on there. Love More Nadu. You know, no one will ever tell me that I didn't win that fight. Love More Nadu was a 2-weight world champion. So, you know, I've had, even though people always want to talk about the Alvarez fight, the Kell Brook fight, I've had some good wins through my career, and it's nice to look back on it, and I'm proud of them.
You touched on maybe staying with Billy a bit too long because, you know, obviously your brother was flying and, you know, and Billy's eggs are in that basket. What would you do as a trainer if you had a precocious talent and other fighters in the gym? How would you maybe move one or two on if you couldn't give them the time, if you had this outrageous talent who was fighting for $1 million purses? How would you operate then?
I think so, you know, or bringing help, or bringing good people, you know, to help, you know, to take people on the pads and things like that, and you just put the final touches on. That's the way I would do it. But, you know, like you say, you do need to spend a lot of time and effort, and obviously there's a pecking order in any gym. You know, anyone who says there isn't is lying. Of course, there's a pecking order in the gym, but there's enough hours in the day if you divide your time up, spend different time. And I think it's important to get, you know, good people in helping you. You know, I've got other people around my gym and stuff like that, and you know, even though I'm in charge, you know, we have other coaches, and I'm a firm believer sometimes it can be even, you know, I listen to everybody when he talks to boxing. You know, some people are like, oh, my way, it's my way, it's my way, it's my way. You know, you've got to listen to sometimes some people can spot things that you can't. It might be someone who's never boxed in their life or doesn't really, and they say something and you think, he's right, actually. So it's important to have the good people around you, really, and sometimes more sets of eyes are better than one. But if you've got a large stable, which I'm not saying isn't achievable, it is, but it's important you bring the right people in to help you. You can't do it on your own.
And tell us about the fighters in your stable at the moment. I know you got Damien Chambers, who wouldn't know what a bad fight is. He just either wants to get knocked out or knock you out. So you must have only training for 2-round fights.
Well, Damien's again, some of the fighters that I've worked with. I've not been working any with fighters who have had, you know, really good amateur backgrounds or anything like that. You know, a lot of fighters who have, it's just the way it's panned out, really, have come to me. I've had limited experience. Damien's one. Damien only had 8 amateur fights. As you've touched on there, he's such a great fighter to watch, you know.
Naturally, raw, isn't he? Brilliantly raw.
Yeah, very excited. Again, he's a Central Area champion now. He won that just before lockdown in a great fight against Jay Farrell, but he's absolute box office. But I've spent hours with Damien, you know, but Damien has got a great attitude to training. He listens to every word you say. He's always on time. He gives 100% every time that he comes into the gym. And that's all that you ask for from a fighter. So when fighters have got that great attitude, and I've got to be honest, some of the fighters these days, Steve, are lacking with the right attitude, with the commitment, with the toughness, with the determination and everything, what it takes to reach a good level in this sport. But Damien's a pleasure to train, a very exciting fighter to watch, as you've touched on there. And I'm expecting big things from him. Spending a lot of time now with my nephew Campbell, who's got a bright future. Absolutely, you know, Campbell's a good fighter. Obviously, it's going to be difficult with Campbell. You know, he's got the pressure of his dad and, you know, the boxing family. But he's got the ability. He can do it. He's got a bright future ahead of him, Campbell. He's a good trainer. You know, so I'm really enjoying working with him. I've got another lad who's just joined me called Luke Evans, who you'll know. Yeah, Luke's a really good fighter. He's been really well schooled. Again, as a chain, not a lot of work to do with Luke, just a few little adjustments here and there. Technically, he's very good. You know, his previous coaches have done a good job with him. So Luke's someone that I'm keen to push on with as well. You know, there's a few other guys that I coach, that I manage, and I don't coach, Steve. So I've only got a small stable at the minute. But that suits me because, like I touched on before, I've had lots of guys coming into my gym, some with lots and lots of ability, and it's so frustrating when they're not committed. They don't show the dedication or the determination that it requires to reach a good level in the sport. And to be honest, mate, looking back in my years in coaching now, which isn't that long, I've wasted so much time on people that didn't really deserve it, to be honest. So now I'd rather keep things small and really work and put my time into the kids that give 100% themselves and the kids that deserve it.
Well, going back to Campbell, when will you and your brother turn him over? You know, does he still need more time boxing on the amateur circuit in the Northwest?
Yeah, well, Campbell is someone that I'm really excited about. And his uncle, we get on great, but from a boxing point of view as well, he's got it. You know, he's not like, you know, we're seeing something similar now with Conor Benn coming through, and it's great to watching it, and it's great to be part of the journey. And, you know, we're all pretty sensible people. We're down to earth. And if Campbell didn't have the ability, we certainly wouldn't push him into boxing. But he can do it. You know, I do lots of work with him now. He's a strong kid. He's very fit. He's got quite good power. And to be honest, Steve, he is better suited to the professionals, really. I mean, he's had about 30 amateur bouts now, maybe just over. Probably winning around 2/3 of his bouts. But when you take into consideration he lost his first 4, he's really started to come on probably the last 2 years. And Campbell's boxing at a really good level. You know, his last opponent was a multinational champion, 70 fights, only losing a handful. And Campbell lost on a split decision. So Campbell's boxing at a really good level now. But he is better suited to the professionals. He wants to turn professional. He's 19 years of age. He'll be 20 early next year. He's got a little one now, and you get to a certain age, and you want to start getting a few quid in your pocket, don't you, Steve? And he wants to turn professional. I think he will be better suited to the professional. He's not quite there yet, but we certainly won't keep the brakes on him for much longer. I expect him to turn professional probably next year.
Oh, that'd be good. But how will you keep the pressure off him as such? Like, you know, Conor Benn's got it with the publicity he's got. I mean, you were sort of, you know, when you turned pro, it wasn't really, I don't know, was it because the expectations weren't there, or I don't know what it was. They didn't seem the pressure on you, you know, having who your brother was, you know, but he's going to get it because of, you know, he's who his dad is. And his nephew fighting Canelo, his uncle fighting Canelo, winning European championships, that sort of thing. How will you keep him, you know, out the spotlight as such, you know, or allow him in the spotlight when the time's right?
Well, it's this is life, isn't it, Steve? You know, it's always a double-edged sword, you know, Campbell being who he is. Yes, there's going to be pressure on his shoulders. But also on the flip side, he's going to get a great opportunity into Steve. You know, he's a lot. You know, both me and you know we're out at a lot of the small shows, and it's so difficult now for these kids coming up. They're running around, they're selling tickets. It's difficult for them. Where Campbell is very popular already. You know, he has good following at his amateur fights. He's a real character. He really is a chip off the old block. He's like the Clone Ranger. He's just like his dad. And people who like Campbell, they'll get behind him, they'll follow him. And once they start seeing him in the ring, he's got a really good, attractive style to watch, you know, very aggressive, good body puncher, just like his dad was. So there is going to be pressure on him, Steve, but that's something he's just going to have to deal with. And at the end of the day, he's going to get some great opportunities. He's going to get the best of training. He's going to get the best of everything. So, yeah, there's pressure, but he's going to get some great opportunities. And I'm talking to him all the time. He's got to grasp these opportunities with both hands. And Campbell's a real character. Trust me, Campbell doesn't shy away from the spotlight. He revels in it, just like his dad. So I don't think he's gonna hinder him, mate. I really don't.
Brilliant. So 2 last questions. I'm going to put the boxing gloves back on you. Of the welterweights in the world today, who would you like to have fought the most? If you was at your peak now, you know, you at your best, which of the welterweights in the world today would you like to have boxed?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. Again, I've never been someone who's taken easy fights. So, mate, I'd have no problem taking on any of the guys. You know, again, it's always been the case. It's a classic division, isn't it? The welterweight division. So many really good names in and around that. Amir Khan, possibly. Amir is a great fighter, and you know, there was a possibility a few times that I could have come and met Amir. You know, Amir's a great fighter. He's gone on to do some great things, but I do regret possibly our paths never crossing. So there's no one in particular what I look at now and think, oh, I'd love to have boxed them. But again, I do like the domestic dust-ups, I must say. So I would have liked to have tested myself against Amir Khan. Maybe I would have got second prize there as well. The odds on that are pretty good, but he certainly wouldn't have got rid of me, mate. So maybe Amir, but no one in particular, really.
Okay, the final one. Which fighter in the world today at welterweight would you want to avoid? If you was a leading contender now and you could fight any welterweight in the world, which one would be bottom of your list?
Oh, I've never avoided anyone, Steve.
I know that.
you know that.
Okay, that's one question. Yeah. Who would have been the hardest night for you then, out of all the current welterweights?
I think Errol Spence is a difficult night for pretty much everyone. You know, very strong, southpaw. You know, very awkward. So he'd be a difficult night for anyone, as we see in Mikel Brook. But you've got Terence Crawford and people like that. It's always been a talent-laden division, and the welterweight, mate. And I'm sure it always will be. So no, there's some good fighters around that weight, mate, and there always has been.
Matthew, thanks very much for talking to us. It's been quite fascinating getting your reflections on your career, what's happening with your stable, your nephew, and he mentioned Errol Spence at the end. It's been our pleasure to have you on.
No, anytime, mate. Always great to speak to you, pal.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.